Hi Nymfam, welcome to FPL 5 Things. Fergie is unable to make it this week as he's living it up in Benidorm, and rightly so, but we have the lovely Ray Karashi standing in for him, so we're in safe hands. Let's get Ray in and discuss some of the dilemmas that face us in our 5 things ahead of Game Week 5. Hey Ray, how you doing, buddy?
Very good, Nim. Thanks for having me on. Been watching this with Fergie since its inception, so it's good to be on.
Yeah, no, I'm very grateful to have you standing in, so thank you for that. We always start with our captaincy options here on 5 Things FPL, so with so many premium options this week, do you think people will stay safe with Salah, Ray, or will they be a little tempted with the likes of Ronaldo or Lukaku this game week?
So personally, I'll go for Salah because I'd like to think I'm a safety first kind of guy, as you know.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
But to quote someone I know, if I wanted to go really bat shizzle, wink, wink, possibly his teammate Sadio Mane. He is on 99 goals, so and that myth of Salah being more selfish can be completely knocked on its head now.
True.
But I think Ronaldo's a great shout as well because he just looks a threat all the time, doesn't he? And when he gets a chance, he finishes it off. So I'd go Salah, but if my second pick would probably be Ronaldo, but I think you're going to say something about Maverick soon, so I think I've answered it already.
Yeah, so, well, Salah has Crystal Palace, 3 goals and 2 assists this season already for Salah, and he looks great. So as you say, he's pretty much the safe option, I would say, this game week. And I think last night we saw him score 2 goals and miss a penalty, which would have been quite interesting, I think, if that had happened in FPL. But I don't think that's any reason why you should or shouldn't go for him this game week. Although, you know, Crystal Palace have looked a bit tighter at the back now, so that could potentially be a thing to look out for, but I don't think it's enough of a thing to worry about the captaincy of Salah, because hopefully he'll get something anyway. As you say, Ronaldo feels like he can score against anybody, 2 goals already, and away to West Ham up next. Our Maverick pick for captaincy this week is Lukaku, mainly for the same reasons as you were saying, really, is that with Ronaldo, he can score against anybody. I pretty much feel the same with Lukaku, to be honest. It just feels like he can get a goal against almost anyone, and that Spurs defence could be a little bit lacking this game week. But I love your shout of a Maverick pick for Mane. That's brilliant. I love that out there pick. The only thing that slightly worries me with it is that sometimes when players have to reach a threshold, so if they've got a big thing coming up next, like the 100 goals, sometimes it can kind of put a bit of pressure on them and then it takes them a while to get it. So that's the only thing that might kind of, you know, put me off of him. But he's looked superb. If only he had finished that chance that Jota gave him on the weekend before Jota was taken off, then we'd all be a lot happier, wouldn't we, really?
That's a good point. I mean, I wanted to go on your former point with Lukaku. The difference between Lukaku and Ronaldo, he just seems the absolute focal point at the moment. Chelsea are just trying to feed the beast.
Yes.
And with Manchester United, they have, for me, more options of returns attacking-wise. They have so many good attackers, Manchester United. While with Lukaku, I think they're just trying to feed him. So I like your shout because every time Chelsea come forward, they're going to look for the beast.
Yes.
So I think Lukaku is a good call.
I'm a little bit worried about not owning him, actually.
Me too, yeah. But no one will. I don't think many people will captain him personally. But in regards to Mane, that's a good point you made about usually when they're after a landmark, it could take them a time to get. But Mane will shoot even more. So it's good for us FPL managers.
True. If not a little frustrating if Salah or Jota are the ones, or Trent are the ones feeding him in my particular case.
Tell me about it. I got so angry. Jota should have had 4 returns, but Mane just said, nah.
I know, like literally went off on a rant in my team selection video about Liverpool this week. Just like they're so frustrating not to own because you have to sit there and watch all these shots going like left, right and centre. But they're even more frustrating to actually own because you're like, just do something,
I
please.
know. Yeah, effing and blinding. I agree.
Exactly that. Okay, then. Well, let's move on to our second point. Now, unfortunately, Antonio, top point scorer in the forwards category and owned by 40.3% of FPL managers at the time of recording this, got himself a red card this week, meaning he misses the United match. Do we sell or do we keep him on the bench for future game weeks to come, Ray? What do you think?
Personally, I have Antonio, as everyone pretty much does. I would keep because after Manchester United, I believe they have Brentford, Leeds, and Everton. I think those are great fixtures to target with Antonio. My policy with Antonio is you play him till he breaks, because you know he'll break eventually.
His cheese strings.
Oh, absolutely. They're just show muscles. They don't really do much. But I would keep him. I would roll that transfer. Personally, I have Ayling, and I'm very comfortable in playing Ayling away to Newcastle. And let's be honest with you, Antonio at home to Manchester United doesn't cry halls for me.
No.
You know, eventually I think Man U will sort it out defensively. So personally, I would advocate rolling, even if you had someone like Livramento coming first off the bench. I know it sounds tough, but I'd probably rather play Livramento than use that transfer.
Exactly. I mean, if you were going to want him to miss one match, then Manchester United is probably that, especially if you've got a Manchester United defender like I have in Shaw. So,
Exactly.
you know, if you were kind of hoping, I guess, for any match to be missed, it would be that particular one. However, it has left me with a bit of dilemma because it means I now have 5 players in that West Ham Manchester United match, which, you know, was always going to be the case with Antonio. However, it now means I will have 2 defenders in that match, which I would have only played Shaw before, whereas it kind of means I'm kind of strong-armed into playing Soufal. So, a little bit of thought process there. I think the Bamford situation, we should get some news from Bielsa today. He feels like the standout replacement for Antonio if you're going to shift Antonio out this week. But I do love the idea of rolling, if not for having so many players in one particular match. That's kind of got me a little bit worried, to be honest.
That's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
It needs to be a monster of a match for it to mean anything to me. Otherwise, you know, it could be a pretty hurtful one on the rank, that. So I think it's generally quite team specific whether you keep Antonio or not this week for me. I like the idea of you playing Livramento. I think I heard something that they may well play him ahead of Walker Peters and have Walker Peters behind him. I think I saw a tweet going around with that. So there's a possible, you know, team formation there that is in the favour of Livramento. But, you know, it's Man City, isn't it? So it's a little bit scary to go there. But if it gives you another transfer for next game week, sometimes it's worth weighing up whether the taking a few less points this game week and allowing yourself to have an extra transfer next week is more important than having the points this particular game week.
100%. So personally, I have Ayling, so I'm going to bring in Ayling, which I'm happy about.
I was already playing him anyway.
Exactly. So I agree with you, because we don't know what's going to happen with DCL at that point. You know, so much stuff is happening at the moment. There's so many tangibles and variables. So I think rolling is the right thing.
Cool. Okay, then. Well, moving on to number 3. And this week, it's who is our player that if we own this week, we'd ship out. So as we've covered Antonio a bit in point 2, I'm assuming DCL is going to be a popular sell this week. What do you think, Ray?
100% advocate selling him. Having an injured toe anyway, a few people I know were shifted in DCL, and I said, don't do it, because you don't like to hear these things, you know.
No.
So if you had DCL, I'd absolutely look to shift him out. And I had a couple of proposals that I wanted to offer you. So one, you take out DCL, you replace him with Jimenez or Bamford. Jimenez and Bamford, it's almost similar in a way, because they look dangerous, but then at the same time, they don't really look like they're going to return. And in the last game, I finally saw Jimenez throw his head around a bit to try and header balls. I just can't relate, because it was an unbelievable injury he got against Arsenal. So I think it's coming, that Jimenez return, because he's a quality player, and I love him as well. I'm very fond of him as an
I
FPL
think that a
asset.
lot of us are, to be honest. He's a
Yeah,
pretty nice guy, isn't he? Really.
and or you could actually use that opportunity if you have a free transfer or even a hit to try and shoehorn in Lukaku,
Mm.
meaning potentially taking in a -4 and looking to bring in a cheaper asset. So if he had Greenwood and DCL, potentially you could bring in Lukaku and drop to like a 4.5 or maybe even a 5.5.
Mm.
You have money in the bank, like Gallagher, who I really like the look of.
Yeah, he looked brilliant last week, didn't he? I think I really would have been quite tempted to shift Benrahma to him if it wasn't for
Yeah.
the fact of his fixture this week in Liverpool.
Yep.
You know, I have been tempted by Gray for that exact reason, but there is some chat that Benrahma could move up front this week with no Antonio, or at least be more attacking. So
Yep.
I think that kind of takes me away from that a little bit. But yeah, DCL 3 goals, the same as Lukaku this season so far. So unfortunate. I feel really bad for people who, you know, wildcarded in this week, and, you know, missing out on Aston Villa and potentially Norwich is not ideal for them. So I think if you have him, whilst we don't really know whether it will be exactly 2-3 weeks, I think it's probably a good shout to shift him on this week with so many other potential options ahead of us. Like you said, being able to move on to a Lukaku potentially in a -4 if you haven't already got a premium forward.
Yeah.
Potentially Bamford, Jimenez. Yeah, you know, there's a few options out there this week to consider for DCL. Okay. For number 4, we've discussed who we'd get rid of, but let's talk about who we'd get in ahead of Game Week 5. So if you haven't already, maybe one of the premiums. What do you think, Ray?
There's no maybe to it.
Yeah, I think we're at the point where we kind of have to now, really.
Yeah, people were saying, well, the time to get Ronaldo in was last week. If you don't get him, if you didn't get him last week, don't get him until Game Week 40. I'm like, no, it's okay, thanks. If there are 3 fixtures that I think look good. He's got West Ham.
Yeah.
And I think he's got Everton. I think he's got Villa at home. These are games he's going to get opportunities in.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I would look to bring in Ronaldo as soon as possible.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if you haven't got one of the premiums up front in Lukaku or Ronaldo, then I think you're brave, very brave to go without them, especially with this week holding, you know, the likes of Antonio with his red card and DCL with his injury.
Yeah.
You know, I think you're doing kind of brave things to be going out with one of the premiums.
There's a thin line between bravery and stupidity.
Yes, very, very true. Well, you know, I don't want to go there, but yeah, exactly. And I think it's probably the time for you to be shifting. So if you're on a wild card, definitely consider having one of those premiums up front. If you can take a small hit, definitely be considering one of those premiums up front. Now, which one of those 2 premiums you go for is kind of up to you, because as we've said earlier on in this particular episode, both Lukaku and Ronaldo just look like they can score no matter what happens, and they both have their pluses and minuses.
Yep.
I know there are a lot of people going for both. Would you go for both, Ray, actually, while we're here? I know myself and Fergie discussed it last week, but...
Yeah, I think that's a further point, but yeah, let's do a spoiler right now.
Okay,
if I was to wildcard today, I'd have both.
Okay, right, we'll get on to that then in point number 5. So who else would you consider? So I touched upon Gray a little bit there with his 3 goals at 5.7 million. Is there anyone else? I know you like the look of Gallagher. Anyone else on your radar?
Yeah, Semedo. He was someone that I was contemplating anyway, but thought, you know, I'll wait a little bit and try and build my team. And obviously shoehorn in Ronaldo, as we all did.
Yes, thankfully.
I think the reason I'll say Semedo out of all of the Wolves assets is because he doesn't really have any competition in the right back position. If you look at Marcel, he has Hoover, who's a direct competition.
That's the thing, because I really like the look of Marcel with his 2 assists at 4.5 million, and he was going to kind of be my shout this week, but you're a little bit worried about rotation there, potentially?
Yeah, because Aït-Nouri also plays as a left back, left wing back. You got Hoover there and eventually Johnny, but Johnny's a long way off. While with Semedo, if he's injured, Wolves will just shoehorn in someone else to play right back.
Okay.
And I don't know how he didn't return against Watford. So for me, Semedo's one that I'll probably look to bring in probably 6 or 7 to step in because I think Wolves have the potential of getting a lot of returns now. And defensively, they actually look very good, and they have only conceded 3 goals despite losing 3 games.
That's that's quite good considering they've lost 3 games. So you're kind of leaning more on rolling the transfer and then going for Wolves next game week instead. Why wait a week? Is it just because you want the 2 transfers, or do you see Brentford potentially nicking a goal?
Yeah, I mean, if Antonio, the real predicament I had is, do I roll the transfer or do I take out Tony and bring in Jimenez? Because I do feel the returns will come for Wolves. But if I bought in players, it will only be Jimenez or Semedo, not Cody, definitely not Traore, not Marcel, not Trincao.
Yeah.
But my team is nicely set up. It's quite template, but I still have a few good players like Jota here and there, and I'm happy to roll because I still think there's so much that's happening at the moment that and if I carry on 2 transfers, I might feel really brave and say, you know what, I want to bring Lukaku in now. I could bring Lukaku in probably a -4.
Oh, nice.
So
is that including point, the 2 free transfers or
correct? Yeah.
So with a mini wild card, then 3 moves, yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Okay. All right then. Well, let's move on to number 5 then, as we just touched upon. And is it time, do you think, to go all in on the forward premiums of both Lukaku and Ronaldo? So if you had activated that wild card this week, I asked Fergie exactly the same question last week. I think it's still a question on a lot of people's lips, and I'm seeing a lot of wild cards with both of them up front. So I'd love to get your opinion on going for both Lukaku and Ronaldo going forward.
Yeah, so if I hit the wild card today, I would have Lukaku and Ronaldo. But definitely with the idea of taking out Ronaldo in probably game week 8, because the fixtures seriously get a bit shady for Manchester United on paper, because they have like Leicester, Liverpool, Tottenham, Man City 4 in a row. Then Watford, sure. Then Arsenal. Who knows? Arsenal might have sorted out their lives at that point as well.
So, here's hoping, with both of us being Arsenal fans.
And at no point would I captain Ronaldo in any of those fixtures, apart maybe the Watford ones. So that's a huge price point to have on a player that you're likely not going to captain.
Yeah. So this is a bit of a discussion I've been having in a few group chats, actually, because I was thinking, everyone makes this point that you're not going to captain, both of them every week. So there's no point spending that much money on both of them. Now, I get that point. I completely understand it. Obviously, Fergie mentioned if Ronaldo gets a goal, but a defender you play gets a clean sheet and some bonus points, it's about the same points. So, you're not really gaining anything by paying the extra money, say, for Lukaku up front, in my situation, because I've got Ronaldo, or vice versa, if you're not going to captain them. So I think it's quite interesting, though, because my point was that obviously last season we were all very happy to squeeze in the likes of Kane, Salah, Bruno, and they were all premium players in our team, and we weren't going to be able to captain them every week. So where does the line come in? Where do we draw it in terms of, captaincy and the extra money for player that we just know will do consistently well for the rest of the season?
I think that's a good point. I mean, last season, Kane was 10.5.
Yeah.
So already, if you add everything together, I think the 3 premiums of last season compared to this season, I think is already 2 million more. Okay. If you want Salah, Lukaku, and Ronaldo. And also, I think there's too much sacrifice that you have to make with the rest of your squad. I don't think it allows the flexibility you want.
Yeah.
Because I played with it, as we all did. Every single FPL manager.
Of course we did.
During the international break, did a wild card. Of course they did. And when I did it, I didn't like the lack of flexibility that I had. I don't mind playing 4 at the back, but it was like a 4-3-3, and I had like 3 £4.5 million players, like two 4.5 midfielders and one 4.5 striker. And I thought there was just too much. I was relying too much on the likes of Gray, on Gallagher. These guys aren't consistent assets. They've just come into the league.
Yeah.
So
it'll be very interesting, I think, to see whether they do continue their form or whether they,
Benrahma.
or whether they drop off a cliff. Yeah, that might have been my fault. He literally has done nothing since I bought him.
Yeah, likewise when I bought him, and he's bought nothing. So
exactly.
Me personally, at the moment, but as we know, plans change. Is I have Ronaldo, like yourself.
Yeah.
Is that in 8 or 7, I'll just switch him to Lukaku.
Okay.
Plainly because I can use that extra 1 million to bring in Rudiger quite comfortably for Ben White, for example. So, but when Ronaldo scores 5 goals in the next 3, my whole thinking will change.
Exactly. That's the bit that worries me. But just to go back on your point there, because you'll be more likely to captain Lukaku in those game weeks, that's why you do the switch there. Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, though. It is so tough to see the teams with both of them in, knowing that they are just going to be consistent players pretty much most of the season, tucking away goals, and to go without either or feels kind of scary at this point. I think my whole worry is, whilst it's quite difficult at the moment to fit both of them in, will it become more difficult for somebody like myself, who's potentially wildcarding Game Week 7 or longer, if I can do that, to be able to get them in and still be able to afford to get them in? Say Gray and Gallagher become quite consistent players in that price point. They could be near a 6 million by the time I decide wildcard. And then that makes my life way more difficult for squeezing in both Ronaldo and Lukaku up front, really. So it's a tough one to weigh up. I like the teams at the moment that I'm seeing with Lukaku and Ronaldo in, but I can absolutely see your point on the flexibility, and it's the reason why I haven't jumped for it, if I'm honest, because I really quite like my team at the moment. And whilst I'm still seeing Greenwood in that United team, whilst I have Rafinha, I have a lot of the players that people, are getting in on wildcards or are thinking about potentially losing on wildcards that I don't yet have enough information on whether or not I want to keep them in my team. So that's kind of why I've held off a little bit. And I guess there is the excellent point that Fergie made that, yes, whilst at the moment it feels like I won't be able to afford Lukaku and Ronaldo by the time I wildcard, because it seems like a very slim wildcard already at the moment if I have both of them in. It could turn out that Jota becomes less of an asset by the time I wildcard, and so therefore I'd be able to get some funds from him. Maybe Greenwood starts getting dropped. Like you say, United have some tougher fixtures coming up. So, that all of that could free up the funds that I needed to do those particular moves. So I'm trying not to be overreactive and panic and go running into the all-out attack.
Could I add to that point?
Of course you can.
Yeah, so there's 2 things really. A is, as our team value increases, there will be a more tangible opportunity to have all 3 assets at one point as our team value really starts to grow.
That's a great point.
Someone said that to me yesterday. I was like, "That's a really, really good point."
I'll have that. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm not crediting it, but I'm stealing it.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
The second one as well, and this is something I do a lot, and with our Wildcat streams is possibly something I've shared a lot. Is you can't say it's Lukaku versus Antonio. It's more of Lukaku and it's a duo. It's Lukaku and a 4.5 defender versus Antonio and Jota, which couplet do I think will make more points? And I will always go for the 2 mid-price overperformers in Jota and Antonio, especially if Firmino's injured, rather than Lukaku and Ayling. Because then, for me, I'm putting too many eggs in Lukaku having to put, or Ronaldo in this instance, having to perform from 7-8 onwards, that if he's not performing for me, who am I relying on to pick up the points? Gallagher?
Good point.
I'd rather go for the Jota and Antonio today
Yeah.
But tomorrow, I might change my mentality.
After this weekend, I'm all in. I'm all in.
But you can balance, and even in that aspect, I still have money to play with because Antonio and Jota are 15 million,
Yes.
whilst Lukaku and Ayling's like 16 million or
Yeah.
16.5 million. So you can use that money again to bring in a Chelsea defender. So I think having a balance is better, and then trying to hop on, hop off accordingly.
Yeah, so it's a good point. How many players can you get for the one player you're trying to get in? So it's kind of what we were saying about Son, wasn't it, at the beginning of the season? Like having Sonny in our teams, we were a bit like, well, we could get 2 players potentially for the price of Son. So maybe it's better to spread the cash over those 2 players than go all in on that one. So, yep, excellent points there. Okay. That's it, you guys. That's our 5 things for Game Week 5. Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments below. We love to hear from you. You can also find a link to Ray's Twitter page in the description below. If you've enjoyed the video, then please do like, share and subscribe. So it's goodbye for now from me and goodbye from Ray.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining me, buddy. Nymfria times Ray out.